What if the world you know could vanish in an instant? And what if the power to change everything was quietly waiting in places you never even noticed? I've got an author I'd like you to meet whose fantasy novels don't just tell a story. They pull you into a world where courage, magic, and the smallest choices carry the weight of an entire kingdom. Stick around because you'll not only learn more about this book, you'll learn about the writing journey this author took to create it.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is Andrew McDowell. Join us as he shares the inspiration behind his book, along with his writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Andrew McDowell, is the author of the fantasy novels Mystical Greenwood and Beneath the Deep Wave. He studied at St. Mary's College and the University of Maryland College Park. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome and autism spectrum disorder. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Andrew.
Pleasure to be here, Rob. Thank you.
It's great having you here. I want to dive right in, and let's start with my favorite question. And Andrew's an honest guy. I asked him, hey, Andrew, have you listened to the show? No, not yet. He will now. But the show is called A Book Finds You because rarely do we find the book. It kind of hunts us down. So this last book that you wrote, how did that book find you?
So if you mean Beneath the Deep Wave, then, well, I guess it sort of followed on from Mystical Greenwood, from what that book eventually became, because that book had quite an interesting start on its own. But yeah, I was just building upon that and trying to think about, what part two would be, because I set out from the beginning, when I decided this was going to be fantasy, I was going to write a trilogy, because it seems all the great fantasy writers have done that. Tolkien, Pollini, so it just seemed the natural thing to do.
Yeah.
Plus, one of the things I followed when I was trying to organize the plot was Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, so I was thinking Beneath the Deep Wave would be the second phase with the Rhoda trials, and I already had in mind that I wanted to have, spoiler alert, a dark ending to this book, but then with the promise that with the final book, which is what I'm trying to work on now, we'll wrap everything up and give us a better, shall we say, a happier ending. That's my goal for the last one.
Good. Well, slight spoiler alert, but at least we know, and he's telling us we're going to have to get the third one to patch all the holes back up. Let's drop back a little bit then. Tell me about the first book. How did that one find you?
Well, believe it or not, I was not originally setting out to write fantasy. I was actually going to try something in horror, but as I started writing it, I realized it was not going in the way I was expecting, and I realized it was leaning more towards the fantasy than the horror, so I decided to just go with the flow. And so when that happened, I realized I needed to find a different theme, something very central that I thought could give the book, as one reviewer put it later when he described it, a heart. And so I knew as a kid I'd always been fascinated with animals, with nature, and so having read a little bit about nature magic, the nature theme magic, I decided that's what I wanted to put at the heart and center of the story, so the connection with the natural world.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay. So for readers who are reading this and maybe they get lost in the worlds that you're creating, what experience do you hope they take away from it beyond the adventure itself? What do you hope they take away from it?
Well, I certainly hope that they would take away from these books a different outlook towards the natural world, and I hope they would maybe look at the environment and the animals and trees and so forth with more respect, and to realize that humanity is a part of nature and we're not, dominant over it.
Right.
Which is something I think that's going on a lot in the world. There's so many environmental activists who are talking about how humanity has done stuff to, harm the planet, and also what we can do to, save it. And so I guess ultimately with nature, I just want them to realize, that we're not only a part of this world, but so are all these other creatures and trees and so forth who live, in that delicate balance and harmony. And if we lose that, then, we will be affected by it too.
If you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment and bend my arm backwards and pat me on the back. There it is. Okay. And I'm patting me on the back because I loved your answer. And so I like my question all of a sudden. I was looking at that question before we spoke, and I was thinking, I wonder what that will take us. And it actually took us to something that I didn't see coming. So I'm really glad that I asked it. When you started Was that your intent, or did it sort of just begin to drift in that area?
Well, going back to one of my earlier answers, it was going in that way because, truth be told, I actually wanted to write something with werewolves. So yes, it totally changed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and this started actually back in the days before I learned how to type, and I think I've mentioned this on other interviews and so forth. I didn't successfully learn to type until I took a keyboarding class in my first year in high school. So I was originally writing by longhand, and I still remember the nights, when my hand got tired, and of course, being a lefty, I got graphite stains all over the side.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, eventually I just realized it was not going what I originally envisioned, so I just went with the flow, and so thinking about nature, and I guess in a way maybe I already did, like love it and think of it a different more, but certainly it made me look at it. It made me look at nature in a different way too.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
my research and the writing. So yeah, in a way you could say life began to imitate art or so
Right.
forth. So
Right. Yep. Now that makes sense. And by the way, I'm a fellow lefty, so I carry that left-handed brownish blackish area on my hand. I remember it from school. And I'll tell you something else, Andrew. I mentored a man once who was a 25-year repeat offender in prison. They didn't have a keyboard or a computer for him, so he wrote his book on a legal pad. He wasn't left-handed, but I had no idea. We were just sort of communicating through letters. And when he said, "I'm done with the first draft," wrote him. I said, "How many pages is this?" 1,600 pages. But you know what? Every writer gets it done their own way. When you write, do you have a character in mind? Do you start with sort of a character or a plot or a theme? Just how thought out are you as you start going down that path?
well, I guess at the start of a book, I sort of have a basic, rough idea of where I want to go, and I try to have a theme in mind, something I want to make the story special, and I try to start building a main character in my head at least. So, but I guess I'm more of what they call a plantser in between plotting and pantsing. So I like to because my writing style has actually a bit changed. I think ever since I've gone to typing because I don't think I even finished that longhand thing because it was in that transition. So, but now, and I don't know if it's because of how social media has limited our people's attention span, but now it's more of like assembling a puzzle rather than going from start to finish for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that with Beneath the Deep Wave and with the book in progress, it's like I guess at the beginning, I started, but then ideas came in and I start writing them down, especially if it's something I feel I can get down. So it's more of putting them there and trying to get to them later. So and they get moved around. So yeah, like I said, it's assembling a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. Do you and I don't know where I'm going with this question, but do you sleep with a tape recorder by the bed, or your smartphone or a pad? Because at least for me, when I'm in writing mode, it won't leave me alone. And so I can be walking, talking, at a movie, at 3 in the morning, wake up. Got to have a way of capturing it because I've lost too much being positive that later on in the day I'll get it written down. How do you grab it all when it's coming at you from different angles?
Yeah. Well, I can't say it's happened too much right now,
Hmm.
but one thing I try to do, keep a journal, though I admit I'm not the most now I'm searching for the right word. I don't commit to it every time, but sometimes I try to write down, what I'm struggling with in the journal and ask aloud, how am I going to solve this?
Hmm.
And sometimes the answers come to me, other times they don't. But lately I'm doing a writing routine where it's worked for Beneath the Deep Wave and I'm trying to repeat it for this book. So basically I try to get 1,000 words a week. So over 5 days, aim for to get a 200 according to Word, like Microsoft Word.
Right.
So yeah, I just type down what I can, and sometimes it comes to me, other times it struggles. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I find sometimes the struggling pieces sometimes can be the best pieces. In other words, it's weird that when I think I know just what I want to say, there's just nothing fresh about it. When I'm confused and just sort of traveling along, I tend to find that I'm a little bit more creative. But that's me. We share another thing. We're not only both left-handed. I keep a journal as well. I'm much actually better at a journal when I travel a lot because I like writing in airplanes, and as a professional speaker, I travel a lot. But I applaud the fact that you, even though you kind of go to it and leave it and go to it and leave it, I think a journal is just a great idea. Not just capture ideas, but just sort of staying in writing shape, when we're in between books. So, anyway, all right, let me ask you this question. Have you ever given up on a book?
Well, at the moment, maybe not ones I've written scenes for, because there have been like projects where I've started and haven't finished, but I've kept them on the back burner to go to later because I guess I've realized, for me, working on one book at a time is much better, so I can concentrate and not have my ideas floating around. But I
Right.
keep those in the back burner to use. But I will say, in the beginning, I guess when I tried to control so much, I tried thinking of different themes and ideas, and I will admit a lot of them just never fleshed out. So some were stronger, that didn't go away, but the ones that didn't, I've kind of let fall away. And I mean, in the back of my mind, they might come into something else someday, but then again, maybe not. So I guess that's a lesson I've learned. It's never a good idea to try to control everything up
Right.
front before you start it, because otherwise, if it doesn't work, you just have to start all over. So it's good to keep it open, keep an open
Yeah.
mind.
I agree with you. I also think that one of the dangerous things that we have to watch out for is I refer to it sometimes as chasing the shiny penny in the corner. Work, writing sometimes is very joyous and really exciting. And other times it's a grind. It's just the way it is. That's, unless you're writing, 200 words. So we can't always be in the best of moods. And sometimes we get these other ideas that begin filtering in and we go, you know what? I'll come back to this and I'll go over there. And it takes a disciplined mind to say, yeah, no, I'm going to stay focused. And even though this is, a tougher day to write, I'm going to stick with it. All right. So you get about 1,000 words a week when you're in writing form. Uh, do you have a favorite place that you like to write from?
Well, I wouldn't call it a favorite. Right now, I just do it at the coffee table, even though I admit it's maybe not be the best place, but practically it's the best because it's near the coffee pot. Because I try to go straight to writing right after breakfast, so it's during my coffee time that I will try to get those words in first and go to email second, shall we
Right.
say?
Right. I actually sometimes will take myself when I'm really writing. I'll go into the library, into the research area, and not allow myself to be online because I'll get 100 emails easily a day. And this is for people who are listening. Sometimes it's tough to say, all I'm going to do is write and answer emails because I'm not so sure how much writing we can get done. They just tend to trickle in. So I'll try and shut it off. As for the coffee table, Andrew, it's, I know people that will write, next to a lake, they'll write wherever it grabs them. Uh, how about this question? For you, what's the most challenging part of the writing process?
Over the years, I think it's been character development and I think this goes to my autism because I'm someone who has difficulty interpreting or under the verbal cues or sometimes even like facial cues of people. So, and I've in the past fallen into the trap where I get so bogged down in the details I ignore that character thing. So, yes, I would say that's my great challenge is to make the characters distinguishable. But outside of the writing itself, it's believing in myself because I guess I'm such a perfectionist. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I've fallen into the trap of imposter syndrome quite often.
Well, welcome to the club. I'm still waiting, by the way, to meet the first person. Now, I'm talking to a lot of professional speakers often. These are people you'll see on stage, in front of 1,000 people. I'm still waiting to meet the first one who tells me that they don't have imposter syndrome. It's just how we mask it generally, and at what degree we're battling it. But we all battle it. I've actually been speaking for 40 years. I've got 8 books out, and it's not every day or every minute, but it's certainly consistent. Particularly when I get one eyebrow that goes up or one comment that isn't as kind of what am I doing here? But we soldier on. I like to think our track record speaks for itself. The fact that you got a book done, you got 2 books out, right? Two,
Yep, and
right?
as a matter of fact, I don't know when this will go be out,
Probably in a
but
week or two, maybe right around Christmas.
right, yeah, because in 2026, I'm planning to actually relaunch the books, the first
Okay.
two books, because at the moment I'm having a copy editor look at them again. Because, and I guess this was another struggle with my perfectionism because I guess at the beginning, and I say this with hindsight, perhaps I should have hired a copy editor before I published, but I was afraid of spending so much money. And the end result was I found typos, year after year and inconsistencies too. So, in fact, it was at the last Maryland Writers Conference, the keynote speaker, Mr. Farrell Coleman, actually commented, and I mentioned this to him, it's never too late to hire a copy editor. And apparently, yes, books can get relaunched with changes. So I've decided I'm going to do that and also have the final book copy edited before it goes out. So,
Good.
and that was another big lesson I think I learned with writing or editing or anything. You've got to go slow. Don't rush into anything. And believe me, I've made that mistake multiple times in my writing journey.
Right. Well, and you brought up something very important. If you go conventionally and get conventionally published, the reason why you're only getting 12.5 to 15% of your royalty is because so much is going into the copy editing. Copy editors, Andrew, can cost $16,000 on a 60,000 word manuscript, let's say. So now that's the top of the line, and that's one area. That's where the publishers are going. So it is a big cost, but I think it's really an important cost. So sometimes it's nice. My very first book, I found a retired English professor, and I mean this guy. Every time I had written pages, 1993, okay, and every time they came back to me, they reeked of pipe tobacco because it's sort of just the way I imagined him. He was sitting in his chair in his smoking jacket or whatever, smoking a pipe and reading my book. But we have to get somebody else's eyes on it because we just don't. We hear it one way in our head and we won't capture it. Somebody who's looking at it cold. So it's an expense. Let's stay on that a little bit on the publishing and marketing side. So I'm guessing this is a self-published book. What publisher are you using?
Well, it's indie publisher,
Okay.
and this was actually quite a bit of a journey itself. And again, I'm going back to the examples of where I rushed, and because originally when I wrote Mr. Greenwood, what I call the early version, it was under a different title called Beyond the Forest, which, by the way, survives as a song title in the book.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I was young and impatient, I used a vanity publisher, and I will tell anyone listening to this, don't do that because you have to pay them money. But yeah, editing is really the only thing in the publishing world where I would say you should pay for yourself.
Yes.
So yeah, and I realized I rushed, so I took it out of print later on and tried reworking it, and I changed the title to make it, I wanted a little more of a unique title, and that just came to me. First, I changed the forest part to Greenwood, and I was trying to think of, magic, and mystical sounded better. So the first indie publisher that took it on was called Mockingbird Lane Press. I first heard about them from another writer at at a Maryland Writers Association meeting, actually. So they took it on, and then sadly, after the COVID pandemic, they were one of those small businesses that didn't survive. So they had to close. But by then, I guess I'd published some poetry and short stories with in anthologies from another company called Fay Core. So having already in a relationship with them, I approached them and said, this company is going out of print. My book's going to be open again. Would you be interested in taking on? They said yes immediately. So I had a lucky break there. And when I told them a while ago that I wanted to relaunch them, they were all for that too. So they said they were willing. Well, I mean, they were willing to do that. So again, I'm keeping that relationship is still good.
Good. I'm going to add to something you said, if you don't mind. You said, really the one thing that you don't want to shortchange yourself on is editing. Agreed. I'm going to add one other category, though. I think marketing. We all have a budget. I mean, it'd be lovely if everybody could go out and get a publicist for $30,000-$40,000 and run a 6-month campaign. And when Andrew will see you on the Today Show, but it doesn't always work that way. But there's some smart moves that we can make in the publicity side and in the marketing side. And so I'm always encouraging authors. What budget you have, you hit it right on the head. Number one is editing, but 1B is whatever's left over. Let's try and put it into some intelligent marketing moves so that we don't just write a great book, but that people can find it. And that's the key. So, okay, all right. Let's see. What advice would you give another aspiring writer who's listening to us right now?
Well, for one, I will reiterate, always take everything slow and
Mhm.
don't rush to get published,
All
especially.
right. And no
And
vanity publishers. Got that one too. I'm taking
yeah.
notes.
And
Yep.
also, I will share the advice that my dad gave me when I was starting out. He said the important thing to remember is to tell a story and tell it well. And this was probably because I was getting someone who gets bogged down in the details, but the
Right.
ultimate goal is to tell a story and tell it well. So that should always be the first focus. And because yeah, if you're going into writing for the like say just the money or the fame, no, you're not going to get fame. I don't
Right.
think that's going to work. So
Right.
you're
Right.
yeah,
You get into it, Andrew, and maybe agree or disagree with me on this one. Uh, it's a passion. It's a gift you're giving yourself and to anyone else who wants to, line up and take a shot in reading it. To me, there's a little bit of a legacy value to it as well. Something that you leave behind, and but I'm with you, and I work with some pretty major publishers. I don't mean other than John Grisham and Stephen King, and we can name them on two hands. We do it because of the love of writing. We do it because we for those who are kind enough to want to take a look at our story, we do it for them too. But I'm with your dad on this one. Uh, how about how has your writing changed maybe over the last couple of years? Do you find yourself evolving as a writer?
oh, absolutely. And I'm learning more than I knew when I started out. And this will go tie in also with my Asperger's, and also, now that I'm getting the books copy edited for a relaunch, like because of my shortcomings with language and slang and so forth, I've learned the importance of of the power of words and also sentence structure. I learned in correcting the typos, it gave me the experience of learning things about grammar that I don't think were really prevalent, or at least not stressed a lot in school. You learn about things like misplaced or dangling modifiers, or conjunctive adverbs, and how you punctuate them with commas. And another thing I think for me is also because I always interpreted things so literally. Like, one, sometimes a synonym is not necessarily a synonym. It will have a different connotation. It's like what Mark Twain said: the right word versus the almost right word is the difference between the lightning and the lightning bug.
Lightning bug. Yep. Yeah.
Yep. And also, I guess, and again, I think this was me interpreting things too literally. Like when I started with Mystical Greenwood and wanted that nature thing, I wanted a poetic style that I thought, in quotation marks, flowery language made great literature, but I've realized now that's not true. It just gets in the way, and a lot of, the beta readers and editors have said, you want to tone it down. And I tried when I went in between, Mockingbird and Fake Core, but maybe I didn't do it quite enough. And so I'm hoping now with the copy editing, that is another thing I can tone down even more. So yeah, that's another lesson. I think you don't want the language to get in the way of the story.
Yeah. And back to the copy editor. Not all copy editors are created equal. We want them to really respect your authentic voice and stick to the grammar and the syntax, or areas where they say, "I just don't understand this." That's okay. You're my reader. I need you to say it. I understand it. I wrote it. But I think where we have to watch out is some of them get a little bit heavy-handed, and it's your story and it's your voice, and so that's another thing that we just have to be careful of. We got to find the right one. And I think, Andrew, this is a networking world. I rarely go into things like that without talking to somebody who's used an individual before or something like that. So rather than just pull them off of a website, that's a little too cold for me. But it's you have to find the right copy editor. They're not all created equal. All
Oh
right.
yeah, but
Yep. I wanted to say one more thing to you as we're getting ready to wrap up. When you're in the because I'm assuming you're in the Washington D.C. metropolitan area, are you?
I live in Anne Arundel County, Maryland,
Yeah,
so
that counts. That counts. I just want you to know, and I'm just making this offer to you. And go back and listen to every show. I've never made this offer before. If you do launch this book, relaunch it, and you have a book launch party for it, and I really encourage you to do that. so you can, bring in your friends and neighbors and your village, as we say, your tribe. Uh, you let me know. I'd love to come. And I won't just come. I will grab the microphone unless you take it back from me, and I'll tell people what they need to hear about supporting a book, because a book launch party is lovely, and I want people to enjoy themselves. But I also I want them to understand how important this is to an author to stand by them and to write a review on a book and to tell their friends about this book, because that's how books really do market themselves. So that book launch is important. I don't need a yes or no. I'm just telling you that's an open thing for you and me, and you've got my email address. So I want you to remember that. And don't stop writing. Sounds like it's really taken hold with you. And keep going. Once you get done with the trilogy, you're going to have to keep going somewhere. So I think knowing your creative mind, you'll find something that you like. But congratulations.
Well, thank you, Rob. And I will end with a few other things and also one question about something you said. So
Good.
Yeah, I will say also, I do have, as I said before, some projects I want to get back to, like after I finish the final book in this trilogy. One was something I started actually in my final semester in college. I took a novella writing class, though I think the project will be a novel. It's sort of like a mystery thing where the theme I wanted to explore was, and this is animals too, pets specifically, who are not treated well. So at the moment, the idea was to have a dog to go missing, and the protagonist is going to try to find their missing dog and eventually learn more about how some other dogs are not treated very well or suffering abuse and neglect.
Right.
So that's one novel possibility. And certainly I would like to try to go back to the theme of werewolves, possibly, if I can explore horror. And I even one point tried to write a play about a character who learns about his Asperger's syndrome. So these are, I guess, some of the main partially written projects that I'd like to get back to someday. And trying to think of, my mind's going blank on what I was going to say. So
I was waiting for the question for Rob. I was all excited. I'm ready to feel it.
Yes, I haven't forgotten the question. So you said
ask me the question, and maybe the other part will sneak back in. What's the question?
Yeah, the question was, when you said a book launch, do you recommend in person or online? Because I've seen both.
Yeah,
I attended a friend's in-person launch party years ago, and I think it was around the time when Mockingbird Lane Press actually said they wanted to read the whole book, which I knew was a good sign.
Yeah.
And Fake 4, I know some of their anthologies, and even for, I think, one of my books, they did a virtual one on Facebook. So in your experience, which do you think is probably the best version?
Here's the answer. First of all, because I don't mince my words, I absolutely like to do it live. I think it's more emotional. I think people feel it more. But there's caveats to that. Ever since the pandemic, we've learned that, a virtual world works as well. I know of people that will launch a book live and have a camera going for those who can't make it. I'm always a little concerned about that because I think more people won't make it because they know they can tune in virtually. But I think the big question, Andrew, is how many people do you, and you don't have to answer this, it's rhetorical. How many people do you think you can get in the room? And I have a magic number in my head, and the number is 50. 50 people. I know it's a big number. So that's going to be your A list of friends, your B list of friends, relatives, neighbors, and maybe a few C-listers. People you don't know all that well. But if you think you can get 50 people in a room, I'd do it. I would do it. And again, we probably should just do a whole show on book launches. I'm again happy to talk to you off the show and show you what an invite looks like, how we try way I sell people to come to a book launch. But I would love it live because I always feel we can change the mind of a human being in person a lot better than I can virtually. And it's not that I'm trying to sell them as much as get them to fight for this book. Don't just congratulate me. Tell 5 people about it. Put that review up for me. Here, I'm going to give you a document that tells you how to write a review. So I'm going to do everything I can. But if you think you can get 50 people in that room, I'd go live. And if you think, Rob, if I shook the trees, I don't think I could get more than 20 people. I'd probably do it virtually because I think you'll get 50 virtually. I think you can move the number up. It's easier for them to attend. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay.
I think it certainly does. And I did remember the last thing I wanted to say was, it goes off as another comment you made. I would say writing has given me a purpose beyond like ordinary routines in life.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, when I was young, I actually wanted to be an artist, but I sold myself short thinking I was never going to be good. But once I started writing, and initially it was kind of like a hobby, like a fancy, but as I started writing that book longhand and got more invested into it, that was when I knew there was no turning back, that I had to finish this book, and I knew I was going to continue writing more books. So yes, it's given me a purpose in life.
Good. Well, that's what a wonderful way to conclude the podcast. And again, I will tell you this. Somebody told me once, when you write a book, you're an author. And when you write 2 books, you're a writer. So welcome to the writing club. Congratulations. Don't stop writing. And I thank you so much for being on the show. One last question for you. How do people get a hold of you? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, would that be okay?
I would say the best place you could reach out to me is through my website, andrewmcdowellauthor.com. I have a contact form that you can fill.
Got it.
Now, generally, I would say, if it's not about my writing, don't necessarily expect a response, because believe me, those spammers just love to use that contact page to send me so much spam.
Yes, I've got a website too. Yeah. Okay.
But I would recommend, if you want a response more about my writing, make sure at least you leave a place where I can look up your credentials, because I just feel the internet has become so polluted with these scammers that it's best to always do a background check on who you reach out to on who reaches out to you before you reach back, because you don't want to fall into that trap.
You got it. By the way, for those who are going to look him up, it's Andrew, just the way it sounds. Is there a dot between the Andrew and McDowell?
No, there is not.
Okay, so it's just Andrew and McDowell is McDowell, 1 L or 2?
2 L's. And
okay.
Then the word author, because AndrewMcDowell.com was taken at the time I created my website.
Okay. So Andrew McDowell, author, no dots, nothing, .com. And you better put more in there than just hi, because he's vetting you out by just your contact. Andrew, pleasure getting to know you. Keep up the great work. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be on the show, Rob. I greatly appreciate it.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also hear a brief history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to episode 0.